Hi guys, episode 30 of Average Guy Opinions. Oh, just a footnote though. We may turn this into Average Guy's Opinions. My friend John Marsh, who lives in California, he's about a year older than me, and he's an amazing man. He's been to Africa and he's helped with voting rights and educational programs, and he's done it a long time. He's really amazing at it. He's one of my best and brightest friends. We may end up getting in on this together. And he's black, so we're thinking about calling it average white guy and average black guy opinions. We're going to figure it out, but hopefully that'll start in February as well, with some other things. Okay, so here we are, part four of the Communist Manifesto. Not an easy read. Man, oh man. Okay, so in part three, talked a lot about systems that are put in place, just as we see in today's United States and throughout the world, to keep the working class working hard and believing that they can move to that next level, and all the instruments that are a part of that, including religion and government. And one thing I did miss that was mentioned in part three and also part four, actually, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, part three and part four, the last part of the document is excuse me, is nationalism. Obviously, you're not a good patriot if you don't work your ass off. So even if you don't move up in class or status within this society, well, you're still helping your fellow man out. You're still doing good for the good of the country. So this is a big part of what Marx had to say too, is that this is an anti-nationalistic movement, and that's a big deal. So in the last part is called Socialist and Communist Literature. Once again, some tough reading. I sort of have an inside track because I have my degree in history with a minor in political science, as I've probably mentioned a couple times throughout this. Um, he speaks kind of Germany getting onto the socialist bandwagon in a different way than France does. France, probably about 50 years before this was written, had experienced Bastille and the French Revolution, and let them eat cake, heads rolling, all that good stuff, the guillotine, and the basically the fall of the aristocracy in France. So there's the aristocracy, there's the bourgeois, and then there's the proletariat in that system. Well, once the aristocracy is gone, there's still a hole that needs to be filled, and that's basically filled by the bourgeois. And now you've got two classes instead of three. And so he talks about that and how that kind of affects their views and their implementations of socialism in their society. And he describes Germany um, as a different animal. For one thing, as we know, Germany and France have been at each other's throats since the beginning of time. Same with Germany and England, and same with France and England. I mean, those three countries have probably started who knows how many wars before they were even actually countries. I mean, these people have hated the Norman conquests, the Teutonic Wars, all this stuff, right? So when they were tribes, they even hated each other more than they hated their neighboring tribes. But so Marx mentions Germany and how they didn't really have a strong aristocracy. It was more still that two-tiered system, one of the bourgeois and one of the proletariat, and that they didn't really have the growing pains that France had when it came to the restructuring of their society. Also, they were Prussia before they were Germany, so he mentions how Prussian society kind of acted in the way they were set up versus French society, and the Prussians were basically Prussia became Germany essentially. That's the easiest way to put it, even though it wasn't quite that simple. But the aristocracies of Prussia and France were very different. Like I said, it was more of a two-level system in Germany versus the three-level system, societal systems I'm talking about in France. He also, oh, and by the way, as a sidebar, many people know that throughout history and even up until recent history, in 20th century history, for whatever reason, and it may be a societal thing, it may be the way they look at communism and socialism, the French and the Russians have always been aligned for a very long time, ever since the Crimean War in the early 1800s. The French and the Russians have seen eye to eye on a lot of stuff. You know, I should say after the Crimean War, but the the French, you know, I mean, it goes back to World War One. It goes back to World War Two. Once once Germany mobilized on France, Russia mobilized on Germany, and here you go. Now you've got this war that started because an archduke was shot, an Austrian archduke, by I don't even think he was Russian. His name was Princip. I think he was a Serbian national, but the Serbians have always been. It's just it goes back so far. This is why history is fascinating. Why are these ties so tight? Why do they last to this day? Why are there still 600-year-old wars still have parades and celebrations about them? They're literally like wars from the 1300s, 700 years ago, and there are people still like, oh yeah, well we kicked the Orthodox, you know, asses, the Orthodox Muslims asses, yeah, yeah, Orthodox Catholics rule. I mean, it's insane. I don't understand it. And as an American, I don't think an American understands it because our country's only a couple hundred years old. It's our country's millennia behind these peoples as far as hatred for each other and love for each other, to be honest. So anyway, so this the last chapter, the last part of the Communist Manifesto is basically the nationalistic turns on socialism, especially in France and Germany. That's the main things that Marx talks about. And then at the very end, to go to review. So when he goes through, he said the third part is called Socialist and Communist Literature, and like I say, we're in part 4 because I divided the first part, the bourgeois versus the proletariat, into 2 parts. The second part, which is called Communists and the Proletarians, that's our third part. Now the fourth part is our third part. Here we go. So he divides the socialist and communist literature into, which is part 3, into reactionary socialism and I believe it's conservative socialism. I hope I'm not boring you guys. I feel like a history teacher right now, which I know a lot of people don't like. Yeah, conservative or bourgeois socialism. And then within that, he talks about critical utopian socialism. So there's a lot of different, you know, slants on it, just like anything else. Some people believe in full free enterprise capitalism where there's no regulations. Some people believe we need regulations, or the disparity between the poor and rich will be even worse than it already is, and the environment suffers if you don't have some sort of what I would call common sense type of regulations. You know, so that he talks about that stuff in here, and the very final part is only 2 pages long, and it's the fourth part is called "Position of the Communists in Relation to the Various Existing Opposition Parties." So he talked about the communists and how we feel, or as I'm not speaking, I'll speak as a communist right now, although I don't know what I am. I'm probably more of a social democrat. And he talks about conversations that they can have, that the social democrats can have with the communists, where we are. Like he says here, in Switzerland, they support the radicals. You know, there's different there's you know, and people forget Switzerland was around in 1848, so there's a tiny country that has a lot of power, and so that all these countries with their backgrounds have a say in this, and the main thing that Marx wants you to get out of this is when the proletariat, when the common man, when the working man truly has the power, and is represented as he should be in government and in all other strata of society, we can take care of each other, we can work together, and we can have one beautiful human utopia where we don't even need armies anymore, right? So that's why I kind of support this theory. I don't know if I completely agree with Marx on everything, but I have to say, reading through this, it felt like a very strong document. It felt very education, and like he had done his homework. Like he knew, not only, like I've mentioned before, he knew history. He knew how the machine works, so to speak, how the machine of society of Jesus Christ, losing my words here, but of economy works, the machine of economy, how it works, and how it has to work for capitalism to work, and how it's hard on people. Capitalism's harder on people than in full theory. Like I said in part 3, the system is only as good as the people who run it, who are at the top. So his hope was the proletariat would run the system, that we would have a true representative government of the common man, and that that would get this equaling out that we need, where we just basically take care of each other. So, interesting read. I know, I don't know if I did a great synopsis of it. I tried, but it was good. It was some good brain exercise I needed. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm trying to stay out of the sunlight. That's why I'm a little crooked here. Oh, I could have actually moved my phone that much and made this look a lot better. Anyway, that's why I'm an average guy. Thanks for coming in for episode 30. Episode 31 will wrap up the month in review, and we'll see you guys again in February. Thank you so much. Bye.